Hey everybody, it's Dr. Quinn here, and I wanted to do a closer review of Module 1. You'll notice that if you look at the course schedule, so this is a schedule of this little bit of a shortened week, the 19th to the 24th. It's Origins, Quest, and Identity, and Module 1 is the first week. It's not that particularly long a module. You'll notice Module 2 is broken into two distinct weeks. Module 3 is 1 week. Module 4 is bigger. It's broken into two distinct weeks. And then your final week is your presentation and researched literary essay. You are condensing 15 to 16 weeks of work, 15-week regular semester with a week of final exams into an 8-week term. So I'm going to be asking a lot of you as far as lots of reading and work. We are launching forward here. So definitely go into your announcements, print up that schedule, and you definitely have to stick to it. The rules for missing deadlines are in the syllabus. You will see it there. So if you go to the syllabus, I just want to show that to you before we go and start talking about the first assignment. Late work policy under course policies. Discussion posts must be done on time. Main posts are due Thursday and responses to classmates on Sunday. Major assignments are due within the week that they are assigned. If you miss one of those major assignments, like a short response, it's a 15% per day penalty. The assignments build on top of one another, and you cannot wait till I just don't have the time with all the classes that I'm teaching to grade a student's entire set of assignments week 8. It's just time-wise impossible. And it's going to be harder for you to remember what you read and to work on prior ideas if you delay. That's why that late penalty is in there. It's to help you pace the course. So for Module 1, this is Origins, Quest, and Identity. The first thing you're going to do is click on the Module 1 overview, and you'll see this sort of introduction here, an explanation of the beginnings of existence, purpose in life. We find a lot of these in different texts from different traditions. We are going to play with ideas and purposes of myths. We're going to differentiate between different genres of writing. We're going to identify regional and cultural characteristics that engage in and practice literary criticism, talking about the qualities of a text, talking about a text's effectiveness, that kind of thing. Note in the reading here, it says that you may choose to use the links provided with the press books or download the text in parts. I think it's easier to use this. I would ignore these links entirely. These are hundreds of pages apiece, and it's just too unwieldy. But if you click on the Myths of the Cherokee, for example, you can click on this right here. And if you print this out, I mean, this is something that I tried to print these out, and it got a little unwieldy. I think it's much better to have a hard copy of these texts. But what I would do is let's see if this works. I'm going to copy this, and I want to open up a Word document. You'll notice that by pasting it in, that reading alone ends up being 32 pages. But let's make it font size 12. Let's see what happens here. Then, of course, some of those are images. But again, you're condensing 15 weeks into a much shorter time period. And this may make it easier to print up. And when you print this up, I would recommend printing it up and taking notes, especially on the more difficult texts. When you go to print, you can choose 2 pages per sheet. And what that ends up doing is it pushes it side by side. And if you do front and back, you can go, oh, now it's 27 pages with the way that I reformatted it. So it's down to 27 pages from 32. It could be 12 pages or 6 pages front and back with 2 per side. So those are the ways that you can save on printing costs. And I don't think that that is particularly outrageous. But again, you've got a lot of reading to do. So the Myth of the Cherokee, and it says pages 331 to 344. Then we've got the Myths and Legends of the Pimas. You want to take a look at 344 to 368. Genesis and Exodus in the Bible. Notice, some of this you are going to skim, because this is absolutely really long, and you've got a lot of work to do. But I think the Bible in particular, as far as discussion of myth, will be of interest to many students. We're not going to talk about the Bible in a religious context. We're going to talk about it in a mythological context. Please remember, as we review these texts, that this is not a religion class, and we're not going to be arguing for or against the content inside of it based off of religious preference. We're going to be looking at the style and of the content, and how ideas are shared from one culture to the other. I think that it's absolutely worthy of discussion for students to explore these ideas, whether or not you're part of that religious tradition or not. Okay. Part 2 with quest and identity. We've got the Basho text right here. When you click into Basho, for example, you're not going to see it populate here. Click on the link, and then you get a chance to see the text, right? You can start with the prologue, and I know that this isn't the traditional way that you normally read text on hard copy, but we're trying to use OER, so Open Educational Resource Materials, to make this a little bit easier for you. So this is absolutely something that I think you could also print out. You can see the different sections are not particularly long in this text. This is something that I would imagine would take you an hour or two to read. Then, of course, we've got Gulliver's Travels. We've got Dante's Inferno. We've got poetry with the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. We've got Jamaica Kincaid's Girl. And we've got Sappho. So with this, for example, you can see that some of the texts are quite short. Some of them are in bits and pieces, and some of them are longer. We're looking at poems. We're looking at prose content. We're looking at religious texts. So you're going to need to do your due diligence, because you're going to be asked questions about all sorts of different texts. But in this class, at least you're going to get to privilege certain ones and draw your focus and do even more deep reading on those texts. I'm going to leave it in your capable hands. So that's how you're going to navigate these texts here. Okay. So as you move on, after you've found the links and you start looking at them, what you get to do here is your first discussion, which is ungraded. This is a way to show me you have access to Canvas and that you can find your way into the discussions, and it's good practice. Remember, this is an English class and I'm an English professor. While it's not a composition class, I will be grading you on the quality of your writing. And please know, I am not looking for students to use artificial intelligence in any way, shape, or form. I know what that sounds like, and I train other faculty on the use of artificial intelligence in classrooms. If a student chooses to use artificial intelligence in any of their discussions, it could be considered a failure of the course. I want to hear your writing. Of course, I want you to proofread and grammar check it. But for this class, please turn off Grammarly. Grammarly has all these different options for functionality, and spelling and grammar check can be done in Microsoft Word. You don't want it rewriting sections for you. Artificial intelligence tends to be circular, and it doesn't have a lot of meat on its bones, and it becomes pretty obvious. So the first thing you're actually going to look at this week, as far as a gradable content, is you're going to do a social annotation of T.S. Eliot's Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, which I showed in the orientation video. Here's an introduction to hypothesis, which I also did in the video. You can see how to add links, images, and video inside your hypothesis notes, and then the directions for this particular assignment. This is your first graded assignment. Once you knock this out, then you've got a discussion board that focuses on myth writing. So your job is to look at different myths, and we've got some of those resources bundled in here. You don't have to go back to the prior module. You can just look at it right here. And these are the readings. And of course, the Genesis reading is super long, but you want to be able to differentiate Genesis from myths of the Cherokee, for example, and be able to talk about it with some sort of authority. Okay. In this discussion, there are 3 prompts, and you get a chance to choose one of them, right? That's kind of what I mentioned earlier, doing a comparison of myths of the Cherokee and Genesis. One's myths and legends of the Pimas with Exodus. And then here's another option, talking about evil and how the different groups or sort of different cultural constructs of evil based on the cultural traditions within the readings. And so you're definitely going to need to do those readings. That is going to be your discussion. So you get to prioritize certain of the readings, but please skim them all. It will be easier for me to tell if a student has taken a look at the content or if it's fairly surface level. I don't have an expectation that a student is going to become a scholar of it all, but we practice this writing to become more scholarly and to understand literature. Then you have a Sappho quiz, so you definitely want to read that very closely. After that, you have a short critical response essay. The quiz is to prepare you for this work. Okay. You've got this discussion here, and I will be doing videos later in the week, next week, to talk to you about how to find information in the library, databases. So let's quickly just go back to the assignment, schedule, the course schedule for a second here. So this is our week, starts on the 19th. It's that first module. You've got one discussion, introductions. So you've got this discussion, which is ungraded, but it's a good orientation. I do that like Monday or Tuesday. You got your social annotation. Let's see, discussion post Thursdays. Yeah, so the discussion, introduction, and the discussion of using myths, those are due Thursdays with the responses to your peers due by Sunday. Then you've got the one social annotation. I went ahead and put that Thursday to help pace you. The quiz and the short response on Sunday. So you've got a couple of different due dates during that particular week, which of course ends on Sunday, March 24th. So you can see how it's paced. Some things Thursdays and some things on Sundays. This one particular week has a Tuesday and a Sunday, just to tease it out just a little bit more and give you more space and time to prepare. I hope that you have a great week, and I hope that you reach out if you have any questions for me.